Hi everybody, welcome to week 8 of Project Life. This week we're going to start on the computer because Kellie Stamps last week had a sale on digital files and I may have gone a little overboard, so this week's all going to be digital files. So the first thing I'm going to do is start a new canvas, a 6x4, because I want to work on my title card. So the next thing I'm going to do is open up the card that I want to use for my title card. Now it is a 3x4 card, so I'm going to show you how I make it into my 4x6 card. It is coming from the Perfectly Imperfect card sets from Kellie Stamps, and here it is. I love the colors on this. So I'm going to Control A for select all, Control C for copy, and then go back to my 6x4 canvas, Control V for paste, move this over to the left. I'm going to Control V for paste again, move that to the right. And now this is where I'm going to hit Control T for transform. And then I'm going to right click on that and flip horizontally. So the last thing I want to do with this title card is flip it. You don't have to because you're going to be printing them out. You can actually make it whatever way you want. But just to show you guys what it's going to look like, I'm going to select both layers, Control T for transform again, right click and flip vertically. Next, I'm going to make a journaling card. So I'm going to start a new canvas, a 3x4 canvas. Then I'm going to grab the movie review stamp from the movie night stamp set from Kellie Stamps. I'm going to select it all, copy, paste it on my 3x4 card, and then transform it to fit on the card. Next, I'm going to select the stars stamp from that same stamp set. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select it all, copy it, and paste it on the card. And then I'm just going to transform it and play around a little bit to make it the size I want to fit in that section next to the rating. Now you'll see right here that I duplicate that star layer, and I'll explain that to you in a little bit as to why I did that. So the next thing that I'm going to do is pull colors from my title card. So I'm going to go over to my title card and select the eyedropper and click on that pink. And then I'm going to go back to my 3x4 card, select the layer that has the movie review layer, and use my paint bucket to fill in the movie review so that can tie that to the title card. I want to do the same thing with the stars. So I want to color those in. So I go back to my title card and select the yellow from that title card. And then I'm going to go back to the 3x4 card. And the reason why I made 2 duplicate layers is because I wanted one star to be half painted. So I'm going to go to one layer, get the paint bucket, and then paint in 4 stars. Actually, I'm going to paint in all 5 stars. After they're all colored in, I am going to zoom in so it makes it easier to control. And then I'm going to get the eraser, and on that last star, I am going to stay on that same layer, and I'm going to erase half of that. Now the reason why we have that duplicate layer is if we didn't have that and we erased it, it would erase the star as well. But because we have that duplicate layer on top of it, it keeps the star. Once I am happy with the way that looks, I'm going to take those 2 layers and merge them together. Then I'm going to zoom back out, and then that is done. Now you could add text here as well if you wanted for the title and the date, but I'm going to just handwrite that in afterwards. Once I have everything printed out, I'm just going to lay them out kind of in the places that I want it to go. Now this week I printed my journaling cards on matte photo paper, and it was kind of a game changer for me. I will link what photo paper I use down below, but I really love how the colors popped on it. The first card that I'm going to work on is my title card. I wanted to keep the stamping minimal because I really didn't want to take away from this card. So I grabbed my Citrus Twist Weekish stamp set and I play around with the sizes of the week and decide on this small one because I loved how it fit into that space right next to the heart. So for the numbers this week, I wanted to use my Sidekick and cut out some numbers to not take away from the black heart too much. So I grabbed a white piece of paper and then my little Sidekick, and those die cuts you see, they're Tim Holtz die cuts. It actually came with the whole package. So I do struggle a little bit with keeping the die cuts in place when I'm trying to cut this out. So my solution is just grab a little bit of washi tape to kind of stick it down. Now I always put the washi tape on my hand first because I feel like this helps from ripping the paper when you go to take the washi tape off afterwards. Once I got the numbers cut out, I placed them on the card where I want them. Now, the plan was to have those cards, the numbers sit there and the word week stamped above it. So I grabbed the stamp that I want, and since it is my first time using that specific stamp, I grabbed my eraser and some spare paper to kind of prep the stamp. Now you will see me a couple times struggle with having a solid stamp, but I keep on practicing just to kind of get the kinks out of the stamp since it is a new stamp. So here is where you'll see me make a couple of mistakes. So the first thing I do is just decide to go for it on the title card. So I bring that over, move the numbers down, and stamp it out. Well, you'll see shortly I didn't leave enough space for the numbers, and that 0 is the perfect example. So here's where I noticed that the numbers aren't going to fit, and I kind of am like thinking, do I want to cut it off? And then I move it around, and here's my next error. There was a little piece on the week and I wiped it off and it kind of smudged, and I think it was a little bit of a eraser left behind. So I play around a lot with the numbers, trying to figure out where I want it to go. I even go back to the original spot I was thinking about to see if I would cut off too much of the 8. And decide that I really like the way that the 8 looked in the middle of the heart. It's kind of a happy little accident, as Bob Ross used to say. So before I can question myself anymore, I grab my glue pen and stick that 8 down in that middle of the heart. Next, I grab the pale pink label that came part of that Perfectly Imperfect set and fussy cut that out. Once that is cut out, I grab my Heidi Swap roller date stamp and stamp out the dates on my label. While I'm doing that, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this digital kit. I just fell in love with it, especially because this week was kind of like one of those blah weeks. And they had a card in here, and it's the one above, which you can't really see right now, but you'll see it after. It says, "Don't let yesterday take up too much of today." And they had another journaling card that said, "It's okay not to be okay." And I felt like it just kind of fit with this week. So once I am done stamping out the dates, I stick the label down under that week to hide the smudges and call this title card good. So the next photo I'm going to be journaling about is going to go quick. It's a photo of my morning tea, and I ended up sticking 2 digital stamps directly onto the photo before I printed it. The first is the time one that is from Kellie Stamp's routine stamp set, and the one above that and that circle label has stamps from the coffee loading stamp set. So once I stick that label down, I call this card good and move on to my next. The next journaling card I'm going to work on is that movie card that we worked on in the beginning. So at the beginning of the week, I stumbled across this Korean movie called Space Sweepers. At first, I didn't know what to make of it, but by the middle of it, I was in love. My husband said I went through almost every emotion. One minute I'm laughing, the next minute I'm crying. I started watching Korean shows kind of back in the day when my kids were a toddler. When I'd watch my shows, they would kind of repeat what they were saying, so I was like, well, gotta find something different. So I went to Korean dramas and I fell in love with them. And the best part is they didn't understand what was going on and they couldn't read then. So it was perfect. I could watch my shows and they would be able to play around and not have to worry about what they were listening to. Of course, that all changed once they started learning how to read and I had to stop watching it all completely, but I do love watching some Korean dramas. So for this card, I just grabbed my Kellie Creates pen and wrote out the title, then my roller date stamp to stamp the date, and then I grabbed that pencil just to make some faint lines so I can journal about this card, and then I call this one done. So the next photo that I am going to journal about is a photo I took of some die cuts that I bought from a cute little local craft store, and I can't wait to play with these. It was definitely needed, this retail therapy. So I'm just going to stick that down on that journaling card, which is also part of the kit that I purchased from Kellie Stamps. And then I pull over a little die cut from Ellie's Studio that says play, and I'm just going to stick that over in the corner. Next, I'm going to grab my labels from this kit as well and cut out a pale yellow one. It is a little bit different in color of the journaling card, but the yellows complement each other. So I'm just looking for my favorite pen and I'm just going to write out a little bit of journaling and stick this to the card and call this card done. I really like how all the cards kind of match that title card and how using digital kits kind of make it more simplified, and I feel like everything kind of pieces together perfectly. So this last journaling card I'm going to work on is a Project Life journaling card I had. And I wanted to journal about this week, but I didn't want it to kind of be out there. So this was a piece of a 3x4 journaling card from the digital kit that I cut down and just cut out the "it's okay not to be okay." I am going to try something different with my pocket page, but I was thought is to have that kind of hide the journaling behind it and you can kind of flip it over. So I grabbed my Citrus Twist Weekish stamp set again, and they had this stamp that said Week in Review, so I stamp it at the top. I really like the cursive writing in that and how it fit perfectly in that already kind of open space at the top of this journaling card. Next, I grab my Stamp Market Planet stamp set because I want to have a stamp at the bottom to avoid having that white space. So I have this stamp in there that says Relax and Reset, and I feel like it was kind of perfect for how the week was tough and I was writing about it on that card underneath that. So I stamp it at the bottom. This week I feel like it was definitely a stamp heavy week, but I'm okay with that because I really like how the way that this whole spread is coming along. So I end up grabbing my collected stamp set from Ellie's Studio, and there's a stamp on there that says Confidential, and I thought it'd be perfect to use that as kind of like the pull tab. So I grab a spare piece of paper and I stamp it at the bottom, and I fussy cut this out. Now I am leaving a little bit more of a space at the top because I want to have like a good seal between the two. It's okay not to be okay. So it kind of sticks really well to that. Now, as you can see, I do end up sticking down that Confidential tab on the right side of the cards, and it's not until the end at the pictures that you see that I ended up moving it, because when I put this in my actual album, it stuck out way too much. So right now on the back part of that, I guess I'll call it the flap, I have stuck down the tab that's going to go behind that journaling card and the Confidential tab, and then I'm sticking the top piece to that and make sure that it lines up. I'm going to grab one of my pocket pages because it's hard to explain what my thought process was, but the kind of idea behind this is to have an actual little slit in the pocket page where that bottom part of that flap on that "it's okay not to be okay" will fit through that pocket page and get stuck underneath the journaling card, and the page itself, the tab, the "it's okay not to be okay" tab, will sit on the outside of the pocket page. So I lined up where I wanted the title card and the flap to go over, and I used pencil just to kind of mark the length of the tab that's going to slide underneath the journaling card. And I just take my craft knife and gently slice through that pocket page, and I did do it the size of the tab, and you see here that's kind of the idea of it's just going to slide through that and sit behind the journaling card and stick to it. But you'll see shortly that when I put the actual journaling card in there, I don't like the way it sits, so I do end up slicing a little bit more of that pocket page to kind of make it sit better. So here I'm just playing around with it in the pocket page, trying to get it to fit. And I know it's probably hard to see on the video, but the journaling card was just sitting up a little too high and there was no room for moving that tab around. So this is where I just grabbed my utility knife and cut a little bit further down. At first I got a little nervous because I thought I cut through the back of it, but it was just kind of just a little bit of the feeling of the cut that kind of went through, but nothing cut on the opposite side. So I'm going to slide this journaling card in, and for me to stick it down, all I'm going to do is take my roller tape and roll it on that top side of that tab and carefully lift up the slit and slide it underneath the journaling card so it sticks on the back side of that journaling card. So here you go, I'll slide it underneath, and it's really hard to do because it kept sticking, but once I have it where I need it to be, I just rub it down to stick it. Now, as I mentioned before, I do leave that confidential tab in this video, but I ended up cutting it off and sticking it to the top right of the It's Okay Not to Be Okay. But besides that, this spread is done. Thank you guys for watching this week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Bye!